Hello everybody, we are the group 1 and we are going to present or discuss acid deposition. So for this presentation, it aims to define acid and its forms, acid deposition. It also aims to discuss the pollution that caused acid deposition, discuss how acid deposition forms, the effect of acid deposition, and to give real effect of acid deposition and to provide solution to acid deposition. So the word acid has a pretty nasty sound to it, and when you hear it, you probably think of this picture. But an acid is something with a pH lower than 7. And to put this number in perspective, water is a 7 on a pH scale, and this is considered neutral.
The pH scale measures how acidic or basic a substance is. The pH scale ranges from 0 to 14. A pH of 7 is neutral, while a pH less than 7 is acidic, and a pH greater than 7 is basic. Acids come in all forms, and while some are harmful, others are not. You certainly don't want to mess with hydrochloric acid because this is a 1.1 on the pH scale and will do some serious damage. However, orange juice is also an acid, but you can safely ingest small amounts of it.
When you think of acids, you may also think about acid rain, which is a serious environmental problem. But acid rain is just one of the many ways acidic pollutants in the air can do harm to the Earth's surface.
Last time, we learned about different types of pollutants and how they get into the air. One of the major sources of pollutants is burning of the fossil fuels, from car emissions and energy-producing plants. The type of pollutants that cause acid depositions are primary pollutant and secondary pollutant. So, primary pollutant, an air pollutant emitted directly from a source. Once it is in the atmosphere, they react from harmful substances. Secondary pollutant, it is not directly emitted, but forms when other pollutants react in the atmosphere. These substances that are formed from primary pollutants.
Now, how does acid deposition occur and form? Pollutants and chemicals are emitted through the atmosphere, and most of these pollutants are anthropogenic, which means they are man-made or stem from human activities. Some of the pollutants include nitrogen oxide and sulfur dioxide. Gaseous pollutants in the atmosphere, particulate pollutants, and the pollutants in cloud water and precipitates combine and forms acidic particulates. These particulates can travel over long distances. These particulates are then released to the surface of the earth through two depositions, the wet deposition and the dry deposition. Wet deposition can take form of acid sleet and snow. And it can also take form of acid rain. The dry deposition takes form over acid dust. The products of acid deposition then are received by the soil, the trees, and the forest, and the bodies of water like rivers, lakes, and oceans.
So now let's move on to acid deposition formation. The two main waste gases from the burning of diesel fuel vehicles and coal power plants are sulfur dioxide, SO2, and nitrogen dioxide, or NO2. Sulfur dioxide is formed from natural means such as volcanoes and industrial processes such as the burning of fossil fuels. Nitrogen dioxide is also produced in the high temperatures of lightning strikes and in the combustion chambers of power stations and motor vehicles. These substances can rise very high into the atmosphere, where they mix and react with water, oxygen, and other chemicals to form more acidic pollutants. That causes acid rain. Rain is partially acidic itself because of the presence of carbon dioxide with a pH of around 5 to 6. Because of the aforementioned pollutants, it causes rain to become more acidic. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides dissolve very easily in water and can be carried very far by the wind. As a result, the two compounds can travel long distances where they become part of the rain, sleet, snow, and fog that we experience on certain days. For example, sulfur dioxide reacts with oxygen to form sulfur trioxide. Sulfur trioxide then reacts with water vapor in the atmosphere to form sulfuric acid, which is a strong acid. Water vapor that contains acid becomes part of the clouds that will eventually fall down to the ground as acid rain or acid snow. As I said earlier, winds can blow SO2 and NO2 over long distances and across borders, making acid rain a problem for everyone, and not just those who live close to these
Acid
sources.
deposition, respiratory problem, infrastructure problem, and ecological effect. In respiratory problem, due to increased amounts of fine particulate matter in the air, it contributes to heart and lung problems, such as asthma and bronchitis. While in infrastructure problem, acid rain can damage buildings, historic monuments, and statues, especially those made of rocks such as limestone and marble, due to it contain large amounts of calcium carbonate. Then acids in the rain react with calcium compounds in rock to create gypsum. Then, in ecological effects, are mostly seen in aquatic environments, such as streams, lakes, and marshes. It can be harmful to wildlife due to as it flows through the soil, acidic rainwater can leach aluminum from soil clay particles and flow into aquatic environments.
Geographic distribution of acid rain. Acidity in rain is measured by collecting samples of rain and measuring its pH. To find the distribution of rain acidity, weather conditions are monitored and rain samples are collected at sites all over the country. Acid rains mostly occur in large number of cities with dense population and the concentration of power and industrial plants. Now we have 3 examples of acid rain occurrence. First is in Jezera Mountains in the Czech Republic. Acid rain began in this area in the early 1950s and peaked in the mid-1980s. It resulted in large-scale dieback of spruce stands, a decrease in pH of surface waters, and nearly destroyed the waterways. The second one is Rocky Mountain in the US. Rocky Mountain National Park is affected by acid rain. Acid rain has been responsible for damages in the lands of Colorado since before the 1980s. And the last one is the statues at Oakland University, Rochester, Michigan. These statues are called the Saints and Sinners by Marshall Fredericks. The acid rain is causing the statues to decay.
Next is countering acid decomposition. An ecosystem is considered sensitive to acid decomposition when it lacks adequate soil buffering capacity to counter the acid deposited to it. Acid decomposition nearly affects everything, so here are some ways to counter acid decomposition. First is to reduce amount of sulfur dioxide and oxides of nitrogen released into the atmosphere. So we need to use less energy, hence less fuel burnt. So a great way to counter acid decomposition is to produce energy without the use of fossil fuels. Like instead, use renewable energy sources like solar or wind powers. Next is use cleaner fuels. We need to use cleaner fuels to remove harmful deposits. And next is remove oxides of sulfur and oxides of nitrogen before releasing. Okay, so we all know that nitrogen and sulfur is a major air pollutant. So that's why we need to remove the two before releasing it. Okay, next is use cleaner fuels. So all coal contains sulfur, which when burned, it releases toxic air pollution. That's why we need to use coal that contains less sulfur, and we need to wash it to remove the sulfur content. Next is being responsible citizens. Every one of us should be aware about the harmful effects of acid decomposition, decause, and of the industries which give out nitrogen and sulfur compound waste unethically. Like we need to be responsible and aware to proper disposal of toxic chemicals. Lastly is that be an eco-conscious consumer. Like what I've said earlier, like we need to use renewable energy sources or like energy without fossil fuels. Let's purchase energy savings of appliances, like use carpool, use public transportation, or let's just walk or use the bike or anything that saves energy. Be an eco-friendly.
Acid deposition is when acidic or acid-forming pollutants in the atmosphere deposit on the surface of Earth, and this can occur from any precipitation such as rain, snow, or sleet, but also from fog, gases, and dry particles. Two major culprits of acid deposition are sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, which as mentioned before come from cars, electric utility, plants, and industrial facilities, get emitted into the air. Once there, they react with water and oxygen, which luckily for those of who breathe air are both quite abundant, and produce sulfuric acid and nitric acid. These compounds have a very low pH and are therefore very acidic. Once these compounds are formed, they can hang out in the atmosphere for really long periods of time, sometimes days or weeks. Sometimes they linger in the air but take a trip, traveling more than 1,000 miles when they do come back down to Earth. They can come down in many forms such as rain, snow, fog, and even as dry dust particles.